Hello, 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 and welcome to another Win Daily Show. My name is Michael Rasile. I got my man Ghost here with me, and we are excited to talk about this. I think it's a Wednesday night slate for NBA playoffs. It's been a fun go round so far. Had a couple good games. Actually, one half a good game last night. Poor Ghost, his Raptors aren't really not taking it through for us. One of these days we'll get it. One of these days. But we are here. We are excited. Ghost, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Michael. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Appreciate you asking, brother. It's a good day to be alive. Everybody that is watching us on YouTube right now, please make sure to like this video. Smash the hell out of that like button, and please leave some comments. Tell us who you think is going to be the best NBA DFS player on the slate tonight. We only got 2 games. Got a couple. We got to have heavy lineups here. We're gonna have a lot of Kawhi. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot of good time. But make sure hit that like button and give us some comments on who you think is going to be the best. We really appreciate you that there. So we're going to be checking out the FanDuel side of things today. We usually do DraftKings. We've got to spice it up every once in a while. We're also going to be talking about our friends over at Thrive Fantasy. We got an incredible offer for everybody who wants to join us over at Thrive, make a couple bucks, and get some free stuff too. Who doesn't love that? So let's jump right into it. We have a 2-game slate tonight, and we are very excited for that. We have our Raptors and Celtics, so we're going to get to talk a little bit about Ghost and him being probably sad. And we also have the Clippers, and we have the Nuggets tonight. We'll see if the Kawhi's middle finger can grow longer and longer and longer. But we will start out with the Celtics and the Raptors game. It looks like it should be fun. Can the Raptors pull out and push to a game 7? I'm really crossing my fingers, man, but we'll see what happens there. So talk to me a little bit, Ghost. Let's start there. Do you think the Raptors win? Do you think they take it home for you tonight? Bring us to a game 7?
You're really gonna ask me that?
I got it,
I mean,
man. I
yeah,
got it.
I feel like you already know the answer, but I mean, I'm glad to say it here. Of course, I think my Raps are gonna pull through and take this game 6. I mean, last game they were sluggish to say the least in that
Yeah.
first quarter. If I could put it as nice as possible. I mean, that offense was absolutely dreadful, but at the same time, what I found that looked really good and kind of inspired our fan base here heading into Game 6 is that their defense was amazing as usual, right? I mean, they limited the Celtics to, I think it was 22 or 24 points in that first quarter, and despite only scoring, I think they dropped like 9 or 11 or something like that in the first quarter. I think they lost the first quarter 24-9 or 22-11, something like that. Their defense was amazing, and you know what? Defense wins championships. If they could get things rolling on offense here, I have absolutely no concern about them being in contention to take this game.
I love that. I love that. And I'm crossing my fingers for you, man. I'm not going to lie. I'm just rooting for game 7 at this point because the most beautiful words in sports, game 7. It doesn't get any better than that. But let's talk about this slate a little bit. So we have this first game and it's actually starting a little later tonight. So we're actually just about an hour away from lock. And Ghost, we're actually starting to get some comments coming in. Everyone thinks the Raptors are going to lose. So I really hope you can show them what's what. But we are excited to get to talk about this a little bit more. So talk to me, man. I know we always like to think about game theory. We like to think about the way things go. Nobody saw the Raptors coming out scoring 11 points in a quarter. I'm sure anybody who was on the Raptors, like I'm assuming you were a little bit, it didn't work out so hot. So talk to me a little bit about this game, how you think it's going to go, and where you think we might be able to take a little bit of value, and where we might be able to make a little bit of money.
Well, firstly, to address all the comments and stuff like that, for those of you that don't know, I am from Montreal, up in Canada, so hence why I'll always support my Raptors and the We the North bandwagon. But yeah, needless to say, I mean, both of these teams are going to run an extremely tight rotation. Heading into Game 6, I mean, neither one of these teams have necessarily the deepest of benches in these NBA playoffs. I mean, you take a look at the Clippers, and they could pretty much run a full backup 5-man unit and stuff like that. And while they each have some respectable backup options, I mean, you take a look at what Robert Williams is doing for Boston off the bench when he's coming in for Daniel Tice, and of course with Toronto when you get Serge Ibaka coming in from Marc Gasol and whatnot. I mean, they do have some really good rotation players, but I'm expecting both coaches to really tighten it up here and look for guys like Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet to pretty much play as close as possible to 48 minutes as they can. I mean, especially a guy like Fred VanVleet who virtually never comes off the court in important games. I wouldn't be surprised to see him push 44 or 45 minutes here tonight.
My goodness. All right. And that's how we win in NBA DFS. We need people on the court. We need them playing. We need high usage. And both those dudes always have the ball, it seems like, in their hands. I think that's a good way to do it. So it sounds like those are a couple of the picks that you're going to be rolling with tonight. Fred VanVleet, a little bit less expensive than Kyle Lowry here on FanDuel. How about from the Boston side, especially this top part? The Jayson Tatums, the Kemba Walkers, the Jalen Browns of the world. How do you feel about those guys tonight? And do you think they're going to get as much run as Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry?
I mean, they won't necessarily hit 44, 45 minutes, something like that. I mean, again, Boston does have a little bit of a deeper bench, or at least they've shown to use their bench a little bit more often than Toronto has, especially with Robert Williams, and they're rotating in Brandon Wanamaker and a couple other guys in there too to give Kemba and Marcus Smart and Jalen Brown and Jayson Tatum at least some time to rest a little bit. But over on FanDuel, I mean, because of position scarcity, I mean, again, on draft for our friends at DraftKings, I mean, I'll most likely have very little to no Jayson Tatum tonight because of other studs that I prefer to pay up for in that second game that we're going to touch on later on. But on FanDuel, with just how bad the power forward position is, whether it's a loaded slate with 15 plus games in the month of January, or you're in these NBA playoffs, power forward for some reason also always seems a bit off because of, you got guys like Giannis that are slotted in that small forward and stuff like that on FanDuel, and most recently Anthony Davis got moved to center, which was quite a shock to me when I saw that too. So power forward is always a little thin. So yeah, especially if you're playing cash on a 2-game slate. Again, cash is definitely tough with only 2 games, but there's money to be won, so why not play it? Jayson Tatum's probably going to be a high priority, given how owned he's going to be because of how few options there are at the power forward position.
I love that.
Needless to say, Kemba and Jalen Brown are priced a little bit too high for me. But again, depending on where you want to go with your lineup, if you're running a guy like Kemba Walker or Jalen Brown, it's primarily because you think they're going to end up being one of the top offensive contributors versus Jayson Tatum. So you're really going to have to evaluate how that looks from a power forward perspective.
I like that. And we're actually getting a couple questions over here in the comments. How do you feel about Wanamaker? We have one guy, Jason Leone, asking, do you think he gets at least 20 plus minutes tonight?
Brad Wanamaker. This guy is he's interesting to me. I mean, he is the definition of a chalk bust. Whenever Kemba is out, or Jalen Brown or Marcus Smart, or you could put all 3 of them out and they're like, yeah, Brad Wanamaker, he's minimum price. He's going to go off for 40 points, and this guy puts up 4. You know what I mean? So, like, again, he got a lot of run last game because of that blowout. Boston knew that they were going to end up taking that game. And actually, if you look at their rotation in the fourth quarter, they actually ended up playing their starters longer than I thought they would, as the game started getting a little bit too close for comfort there, despite them being up by 15 or 13 or something like that. They ended up pulling off guys like Brad Wanamaker and Robert Williams. But needless to say, I'm going back to my original stance on this game. I'm expecting a really good defensive game, a heated battle here. Look for both starting 5 units to get as many minutes as possible. And I would think Brad Wanamaker ends up getting closer to maybe 12 to 15 minutes versus 20 to 23, something like that. So again, you would end up banking on him contributing offensively in very limited time. And what I did notice with their rotation is that when he's out there, he's often out there with one of Jayson Tatum or Jalen Brown. So that makes me come off Brad Wanamaker, but I do have a replacement for you in that second game.
Ooh, in that second game, we'll look. And I don't want to spoil anything, but Barry's birthday is wondering if Harold's worth playing. So we'll get there, Barry. I promise.
We'll get there.
We will get to that second game. We have to see if Ghost team up there in Canada can pull it out. So from this mid-tier range, how are you looking at it here? Again, especially with position eligibility here on FanDuel, where are you looking to maybe kind of skirt a couple of these positions and shove in someone like maybe Daniel Tice or something?
So again, power forward is very thin. So Daniel Tice is probably going to be one of, if not the highest owned power forward. So when you're looking at cash games and whatnot, he definitely has to be a focal point in your lineup. But even from a GPP standpoint, sitting at 5,600, he's the guy that I feel comfortable slotting into my lineup simply because of the floor that he presents. I mean, he's been very active on the glass in this series, and whenever him or Robert Williams end up being on the court, they end up I don't want to say dominating the Raptors down low because it's not to that extent, but they do look like they have a slight advantage there. I mean, Toronto looks a little bit sluggish on their defensive switches and whatnot. So with oftentimes Pascal Siakam ends up kind of looking to the corner and saying like, "Hey, is Marcus Smart or Jalen Brown going to bury me?" Like they've been burying me the first 5 games in this series with a 3-point shot, and he ends up being a little slow on his defensive rotation towards Daniel Tice or Robert Williams, which ends up to a lot of ferocious dunking sometimes, which I'm definitely not a big fan of when I'm watching the game, but I am a fan for my DFS lineup. So needless to say, Daniel Tice is a very good option at that power forward position, not only because of how thin it is, just because of the floor that he has. Marcus Smart again at the shooting guard position. I will talk about a guy in that second game that really interests me tonight to pair with Fred VanVleet. But again, if you don't want to go without spoiling it too much, if you don't want to go towards that top end of the shooting guard position, Marcus Smart is another guy with a solid floor. He'll end up getting a ton of minutes, especially with his defensive role in this series, and he's been contributing a lot offensively as well. And he's kind of found his 3-point shot down low. My one thing that I want to point out here is what I was talking about with the team over at Win Daily Sports. Of course, a lot of the guys and girls turn to me for some Raptors knowledge because everyone knows I'm north of the border. Serge Ibaka did leave last game in a walking boot. He did come to the game today apparently in a walking boot. Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. But again, whenever you leave with a walking boot on, it's never something that's good. So the one thing that I do want to point out is the 2 propositions that I told the team today. That being said, if Serge cannot get full run or he cannot come in for Marc Gasol as much as Coach Nick Nurse would like him to, look for one of Norman Powell or Chris Boucher to see a little bit more run than you would expect here. Norman Powell has been the definition of ice cold in these NBA playoffs. I've been telling the guys, please do not play Powell. It's a trap. His price keeps going lower and lower, and everyone's like, man, the guy's gonna get minutes. He's gonna do well, and I'm telling you, it's the definition of a trap. But in a game like this is the first time I've said this all NBA playoffs. Norman Powell is somebody that I'm okay with taking a shot in GPPs in these large field tournaments where you end up having 150 plus entries or something like that. In your single entry 3 max, don't even think about it. But again, if you're entering a lot of lines, because if you're going under the notion where you're making a lineup based on game theory, which is definitely a plausible solution on a 2-game slate, if you're playing the theory that Serge Ibaka does not get full run, one of Norman Powell or Chris Boucher will get a little bit more run to go along with Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, and Marc Gasol, of course. So look for one of those 2 guys to kind of provide a spark off the bench if Serge is limited.
I love that. And yes, you can grab a couple of these guys nice and cheap. That way you're saving a little bit of money because that's what we're going to have to do because I think there's going to be a couple pay up spots in that other game. So anything else from this game or you want to hop over and talk the Clippers Nuggets game and see again, how much longer can Kawhi's finger continue to grow?
Again, the one thing I wanted to mention was Robert Williams. He was a guy that, they really saw him taking advantage of Toronto's interior defense, especially with either Serge or Marc Gasol out there, which was quite surprising to me because both of them are elite defenders guarding the interior. So, but last game he did only get 8 minutes. I know that he had a bit of an injury worry, and he didn't get as much run in the second half as he typically did. Usually he ends up closing the first quarter and starting the second, and then closing the third and starting the fourth. With Daniel Tice doing the exact opposite, but. Again, given that they were kind of running away with that game, he didn't really see much time in that second half. But he's somebody that, you know what, if you're not going up to Nikola Jokic, which we're about to talk about in the second game there, if you want to take a flyer on Robert Williams simply because of the amount of limited options that you have at the center position, you're like, hey, let me just jam in as many studs as I can, and Robert Williams is dirt cheap. I would prefer a guy like Robert Williams over Brad Wanamaker, that's for sure.
I love it. I love it. I hope you're listening, Jason. As we said, gonna try and stick a little Robert Williams in there. All right, let us hop over to this second game, our nightcap. We got the Clippers and the Nuggets playing 9 o'clock here Eastern Standard Time, I think, or maybe it's daylight savings. I honestly don't really know how it works, but got a couple guys. Yes, as you can see, we already have a few pay up spots here. Obviously, we have Kawhi Leonard, we have Nikola Jokic, we have Jamal Murray, who's been an animal during these playoffs. We have Paul George, who I think came back to life finally, which is kind of nice to see. Looking at this game, especially from the top down, how do you look at these top 4 guys? Because considering after these guys, it is a very, very steep drop off to Lou Williams at 5,500.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, given that Jamal Murray has been in tough, I mean, again, he had an absolutely electrifying opening round versus Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz there. Let's not forget about that. So he can pop at any time, but I don't think he could be dealt a harder hand here in the sense that he's either seeing Kawhi Leonard or Paul George on the defensive end. And of course, Patrick Beverly is always up in his face too. I mean, the guy just can't catch a break whenever he's out there. So Nikola Jokic has been doing his thing. Guy's a walking triple double whenever he takes the court. He's the best passing big man in the league, and he's one of the best passers in the league, period, let alone amongst all the big men. So Nikola Jokic is definitely a premier option, especially, again, with how thin that center position is. You pretty much have Jokic, Zubac, Gasol, or if you want to go all the way down to Robert Williams to consider. For our friend that asked if Montrezl Harrell is an option, notice how I did not mention him. So that should kind of indicate how much I'm into Montrezl Harrell today. I will have very little of him simply because he doesn't look like he's in game shape just yet. He's still recovering, and you know what? This isn't really the matchup for him. They utilize him more when they could go small ball, and Nikola Jokic is definitely not somebody that's too small. So Montrezl Harrell would not get too much interest for me, especially with the other options that are there. But coming back to these top options, I mean, it starts and ends with the claw. Everyone saw his defensive play last time with, I believe it was even his middle finger. So that was the meme or gif that I ended up seeing going around on Twitter. So that was definitely fun to watch. But again, the guy's just a force out there. At 10-6, he is a little bit expensive to the point where you can kind of argue fading. But at that point, as if I wasn't already high enough on him as it is, if you're not playing Kawhi, you have to lock in Paul George. I mean, I don't know what it was, but he's just absolutely found his game here. And coming a little bit off basketball for 2 seconds, I completely respect him for coming out about his issues that he was having in the bubble and whatnot. So that was somebody that really inspired all of our fans and the entire industry and of course his teammates, right? So needless to say, I'm really happy to see that Paul George is doing much better, and he's absolutely found his game. He's looking back to playoff P, pandemic P, whatever you want to call him, PG-13. I mean, the guy looks like he's back to top form. So sitting there at 8,200 is an absolute steal for a guy that has 50-plus point upside. Unfortunately, my fellow Canadian Jamal Murray is the guy that's left out there simply because of his matchup. I mean, Kawhi, Paul George, Patrick Beverly, the guy just can't catch a break out there.
Poor Jamal Murray. I want to see the Canadian do well, of course. I want to watch him drop 50, but it's going to be a lot more difficult against Kawhi than it was against Donovan Mitchell. And no disrespect, of course, to Donovan Mitchell there. So with this game, as we see, there's these 4 dudes that are up top, and they're all very nice and expensive, and you kind of pay up options. Obviously, Kawhi is a little more expensive naturally. You still can pay up for Jokic as well. Doesn't look like we're going to be too much on Jamal Murray, but as we scroll, we quickly go from 8,200 to 5,500. So I'm just kind of curious if there, the last game we saw a couple 6K guys, a couple 7K guys. We immediately dropped to that 5K range. So, if we are paying up for some of these spots, we then need to find the value to fill in later. Who from this game are you looking at in terms of value to make sure that you can kind of pay down a little bit for some of these spots and still get that takedown, get that win that money that we're looking to do?
Well, again, given I don't even want to say Jamal Murray struggles. It's not really his fault considering the defensive matchups that he has. I could say it time and time again, but other guys need to pick up the slack. So I'm looking at this trio right here in this 5K range. Michael Porter Jr., Gary Harris, and Jeremy Grant are all guys that could contribute offensively. Gary Harris was coming off a very serious injury that kept him out for months. He was pretty much going to be done for the year before the pandemic took over the world, and we kind of got an extended NBA playoff season, which got him some extended injury recovery time. But he looked really good last game. He looks like he's back into game shape. So sitting there at 5,300 again, he's very similar to that Marcus Smart price range. If you're not going Paul George and Fred VanVleet over at shooting guard, he's definitely somebody that I would consider, especially over on DraftKings, where I believe he's only 4,600 over there. So he's definitely a good value. Jeremy Grant is somebody that can be very frustrating to have in your lineup sometimes, simply because his production is the definition of a roller coaster. But if you take a look at his last 2 games, I believe he's played 40 and 42 minutes. We're on a 2-game slate. Small forward position absolutely blows outside of Kawhi. I get a guy at 5,000 that plays 40 minutes. Yes, please. Right. So, I mean, again, there's very few options on this slate, let alone in the entire NBA playoffs, that play 40+ minutes per game. I mean, outside Fred VanVleet, who would play 100 minutes a game if that was even possible. Jeremy Grant is a guy sitting there at 5,000. If he's playing 40 minutes, it really doesn't take that much for him to get the value. And if you're looking at it from a more analytical standpoint, and you're looking at FanDuel points per minute or DraftKings points per minute or something like that, he really doesn't need that much. I think it's like, I don't know the exact math off the top of my head, but it's probably like 0.75, where most like the highest end players average, like I know Giannis ends up going like 1.7, 1.8, and he's out of this world. But even some elite players average between 1.2 to 1.4, right? So at 0.75 FanDuel points per minute for Jeremy Grant, seeing 36, 40, 42, no matter what amount of minutes that he's there, he's definitely somebody that interests me. And Michael Porter Jr. has been a great spark off the bench. I mean, again, the issue with him is that he really needs the trust of Mike Malone, and his shot needs to be dropping, and he needs to make sure that he's not just losing his defensive scheme back there. So again, if he's somebody that could kind of keep his head on his shoulders and do his thing out there, he's an extremely talented individual, and we absolutely saw him baptize Montrezl Harrell on that last play. So he's probably fired up. I know their team's fired up. I was fired up from my couch watching that. I can't imagine being in the locker room after a play like that. So I'm expecting some big things in the rest of this series for Michael Porter Jr.
Baptized him, Ghost. That is absolutely fantastic. I love it, dude. I love it. So that is a breakdown. Anything on the lower end here? Are you interested in the Patrick Beverleys? I know we spoke. I think I remember you hearing say Zubac's last name. Is there anyone, Reggie Jackson, down here that you're interested in? You know, if we really need to pay down, if we're trying to shove, maybe Kawhi Leonard and Nikola Jokic in one lineup, and we really need to start dumpster diving a little bit in this 2-game slate.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, if you're not playing Michael Porter Jr. or Jeremy Grant, you could always turn to Paul Millsap. He's a clear number 3 out of that trio for me. But again, power forward is just so bad that you could pretty much throw darts and something's going to stick, right? So Paul Millsap is a guy that, again, he's more so reliant on the fact that Michael Porter Jr. kind of ends up getting in the doghouse, and he might get a little bit of minutes. And Mike Malone seems to have a mini crush on Paul Millsap with the amount of minutes that he's getting. I mean, this isn't Paul Millsap when he was on the Atlanta Hawks with Al Horford and Kyle Korver and Jeff Teague and that crazy roster that they had back then. But for some reason, he absolutely loves playing them, and he's seeing some consistent minutes. So at 4,900, I'm definitely not opposed to it, but he would be a clear cut number 3 to Jeremy Grant and MPJ there for me. Again, if you're not going all the way up to Jokic or the Joker, as we like to call him, at center, Zubac is a guy that, again, seeing consistent minutes, given that Montrezl Harrell is not exactly yet in game shape. He's a guy that's out there, and he's an absolute fantasy point per minute machine when he takes the floor, right? So if you could get anywhere from 20 to 22 minutes of Ivica Zubac, he'll definitely provide some nice value at that center position if you're not going all the way up to Joker. Monte Morris has kind of lost his spot for me in my lineup simply because of Gary Harris regaining his full health, and he's been looking much better. And the last guy that I wanted to mention was the one that you mentioned as well, Patrick Beverly. The one thing that you want to roll the dice on there and hope that you don't end up with snake eyes is that he does end up getting the minutes that you would like him to see. He's been very inconsistent with that. But again, when the game's on the line, I know Doc Rivers wants him out there on the court to be guarding Jamal Murray. And just for his defensive presence alone, over on FanDuel, you definitely get a good boost with 3 points for steal and blocks. So he could pretty much hit value just with a couple baskets. He'll definitely get some assists simply from some touch passes or some handoffs to Kawhi and Paul George and whatnot. And he's a lock for a couple steals and blocks back there. So at 4,800, if you're too wary of going with somebody like Kyle Lowry, who's sitting there at 9,000, or Jamal Murray is too expensive for me today, given his matchups, and Kemba Walker as well. If you're going with Tatum, they kind of steal each other's usage and whatnot. I'm all for throwing some Patrick Beverly in your single entry and 3 max tournaments, and of course in your 150 field.
And of course in your 150 field. So anybody, as you just saw, that is Ghost. He is incredible. He knows what he's doing. He wins a lot of money in NBA DFS, and that's why we love having him on the Win Daily team here. That is our breakdown of the 2-game slate, but we just wait. There's more. We have one more piece of information we didn't want to drop with anybody. So if anybody is curious, how do we get in contact with the team over at Win Daily Sports? Well, we have an incredible offer through our friends over at Thrive Fantasy. So Thrive Fantasy is another DFS site, but it's all based on player props, which sometimes a little bit more fun. So as you can see here, we're going to have a plethora of player props from both of these games. If you pick 2 out of 2 correctly, you win 3.6 times your money. So you put in $10, you win 36. You pick 3 out of 3 correctly, you get 62 on a $10 bet. And if you put 4 out of 4 correctly, you win 11 times your entry. So a $10, and you pick out 4 of these correctly, you win 11 times, you win $110. That's not too bad. So why am I telling you all this? Well, if you go over to thrivefantasy.com, use promo code WINDAILY, you know what happens there? You then get a matching offer. So if you can put in $250 to Thrive Fantasy, they'll give you $250 for free, and we will give you 3 months free of Win Daily All Access. So you get to talk to Ghost in our expert chat. You get all of his articles. You get the projections. And with NFL season coming up, you're going to be seeing us a lot more often because we're going to be talking a lot of NFL as well. But why not get the entire NFL season essentially for free, or most of the NFL season for free? If you just go over to thrivefantasy.com, promo code WINDAILY, sign up, put in at least $25 all the way up to $250. They'll match it. We'll give you 3 months for free. That's not a bad offer if you ask me. And it's fun. We love picking props, man. We love picking props. This is a blast. So what we're going to do for you now, we're going to give you 2 that Ghost thinks is a lock. So you can take that 2 and you can go win 3.6 times your money. So go put in $10, win 36 there. We just gave you a boatload of free money now. We're going to give you a third that we're feeling, and then we might get a little frisky and give you a fourth. Those last 2, we'll see what happens. But these first 2 we're very confident in. So Ghost, talk to me a little bit. Where do you want to go for this first prop over here at our friends at Thrive Fantasy?
For those of you that have been keeping up, I absolutely love smashing the overs. First one, I'm going to go with 30.5 PRA for Fred VanVleet. Very similar. I actually mentioned him in the same sentence as Goran Dragic last time when I took his over. They've just been pretty much stagnant. And for a guy that's pretty much a lock to see 40-plus minutes tonight, I don't see how Fred VanVleet doesn't get over 30.5 PRA, knock on wood there.
And just to
barring that
PRA, that's a combined points, rebounds, and assists. So Fred VanVleet needs to get at least 31 points, rebounds, and assists to hit the 30.5 over. All right, what's the second one? Where are we going for the second one, Ghost?
Second one, we're going lock, or we're going a little bit frisky this one?
No, second one's a lock. We need to let the people
win. Second one's a lock. We'll go over 42.5 points, rebounds, assists, or like I said before, PRA with Nikola Jokic, the Joker.
That one seems pretty easy too, right? All right, so cool. He scores 25 points, gets 10 rebounds. Shoot, give him the 10 assists as that triple-double. He smashes that pretty easy. All right, so now we need to get a little frisky. Now we need to see where we can win the people a little bit extra money. Where do you want to go? First game, second game, what are you thinking?
I have 1 or 2 here.
You got 2 left. I need 4 out of you. We got 2 locks.
I got 2?
2 that you're feeling a little frisky about.
So the first frisky one, I'm going to go over 17.5 points and rebounds for Mr. Daniel Theis.
Oh, that is a little frisky. I like that. Okay.
That's why. If we're going frisky, I'll throw it in there. It's definitely not one of my 2 locks, but if we're going frisky, I like that.
I like that. Now give me 1 more. We need 1 more.
The last one, again, this is probably the friskiest of the bunch. I'm going under 20.5 points for Mr. Pascal Siakam.
Whoa. So you think the Raptors win tonight and Pascal Siakam scores under 20 points or under?
Welcome to the Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet show, my friends.
Ooh, there we
Enjoy it. When the Raptors take game 6, remember it. Hopefully I'm not eating my words on our live stream tomorrow, but I'm telling you, Raptors take game 6 here. The one thing that I do want to point out, all jokes aside, Pascal Siakam has only topped 20 points once in this series against Boston. Historically, he does absolutely awful against Boston, and that is thanks to Mr. Jayson Tatum on the defensive end. Look for Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet to absolutely dominate the usage on the offensive end tonight.
I love it. So we'll take that over on Fred VanVleet. We'll take that under on Pascal Siakam. We'll take that over on Nikola Jokic. And who am I forgetting? Yes, the over on Daniel Theis, 17.5 points and rebounds. I want to see that 10 and 10 double-double from him so everybody can win some money. Remember, go over to thrivefantasy.com. Use promo code WINDAILY. They'll give you a matching offer up to $250. You do that, and we give you 3 months free of Win Daily Sports, where then you can come back here, listen to Ghost, win more money with your free money, and enjoy the 3 months free on all the DFS that we got you. Again, NFL season is coming up. We're here to help. So, Ghost, appreciate the hell out of you as always today. Where can everybody find you on the internet?
At DFS_Ghost over on Twitter, and of course, with the Win Daily family in our Discord channel. Make sure you guys come and join.
Win Daily on the Discord. Come hop over there. You can hang out with us. You can learn everything on DFS. You can let Ghost tell you everything he knows. You can find me at Michael Rasile1 on Twitter. You can find us at Win Daily Sports. And again, we are starting to crank out the NFL content as well. But we are not forgetting about basketball. We still have enough series left in the playoffs, baby. Oh, the playoffs. We love it. So thank you all for Ghost, for the Win Daily team, for the Win Daily family, for myself. We hope you all make it a very